Good evening, family. How are you all doing on this Thursday? It's been that kind of Thursday. Not that wasn't a bad thing. It's just been a kind of day. So I hope you all are doing well. It's a lovely day. I know that. I've been out and about in the sunshine and definitely enjoying that, getting a lot of things done. How are you all doing? There's Shania. She says, "Good evening." There it is.
That's right.
There's the thing that we look for.
That's right.
And if you guys were not tuned in yesterday, then you missed out. You're gonna have to go back in the archives and find Shania when she did her monologues and how phenomenal they were, and also some of the things that we learned from Shania and her grandmother about Shania as a young actress, as well as just the process of those things. Like I just found that to be interesting, and the things that she's accomplished at 10 years of age. It was just amazing. So you don't have to go back too far in the archives. You can go back to yesterday, and I guarantee you're going to be like, wow. But I think it's so wonderful to highlight our children, to be able to see Black children doing positive, like just awesome, phenomenal things. I think a lot of times they don't get the spotlight for being the phenomenal young people that they are, and they're phenomenal regardless. But a lot of them are just really, really doing great things. We have some amazing children and teenagers who come up here. Isn't that right, Rodney?
Of course, it's right.
I mean, like,
what else should we expect? That's right. What else should we expect? Absolutely.
Yeah. So, everybody, this is the place to be to see all of those. I think it's a great pick-me-up, just a positive space, but a fun space, a space that is based around culturally affirming literature. If you don't know, that is literature where Black children are able to see themselves positively represented. So you're seeing, action like this.
I see you and I raise you.
All right. So, that's what goes down here on these parts with the Let's Get Clever virtual village reading. So before we move any further, the task that we have to tend to. So I'm going to tend to that right now. Okay. Don't you go nowhere.
Look, mommy, community in action. But oh my, let us down to that. Look, daddy, there's a book for me too. But oh my, let us down to that. Creative, affirming, and culture for me too. Look, granny, and let us down to that. Look, granny, and let us down to that. Look, granny, and let us down to that. Learning and exploring about history, you see. Look, mommy, and let us down to that. We confident, we practice and develop fluency. Look, daddy, and let us down to that. Families, they bonding, they representing me. Look, granny, and let us down to that. Look, I'm here, let us down to that. Nice, I see, let us down to that.
So reliable, culturally relevant. Sit back and listen to the wisdom while we represent. So reliable, culturally relevant. Readers to leaders, they hold it down where they have to sit. So reliable, culturally relevant. Sit back and listen to the wisdom while you represent. So reliable, culturally relevant. Readers to leaders, they hold it down, yeah, they have to sit.
Look, mommy, give me the reading action. Well, oh my, let us down to that. Look, daddy, there's a book for me too. Well, oh my, let us down to that. Creative, affirming, culture for me too. Look, Brandy, let us down to that.
Forever loving the sound of that. Okay, you guys, if you've been tuning in, then you know that is my ringtone. And when I'm in public spaces and it comes on, I let it ring a little longer so people can get some of that theme song action. Yes, and a continuous shout out to Portia and her daughter Peyton for creating that song for us, for bringing that wonderful thing to life. Our influencers, they talked about on their Teen Takeover Wednesday the effects of media and the type of Black programming that's out there a lot of times. And I just think one of the wonderful, I'm not always a technology fan. I'm not, this is just my personal opinion. I laugh because I'm like, well, people laugh at me because I'm like, I don't need a whole bunch of technology. I could go back to, I don't know, some far time without a whole bunch of stuff. But nonetheless, a cool thing about now is we have a lot of control over what we want to watch, what we can put out, and what we want to consume. Just because things are on the television, there are other ways you can stream things, and you also can tune into programming like this. And there are a lot of people in our community making great, putting great content out there. So we have more control over what we decide to listen to, what we decide to listen to, what we decide to view. And I think that is very important when we talk about valuing our children, in our community. We got to value what we consume as well, and we have to be mindful of those things. So we hope that you guys are enjoying the menu for consumption that we are putting out here for you all. Peyton is just so wonderful. Okay, like Peyton is a breath of fresh air. Okay, and thank you so much, sweetie. And again, these are just beautiful things about the village that we all have created here. If you guys, I don't know if Peyton caught it, but we just gave you and your mom a shout out for the theme song, like a forever continuous shout out for creating that theme song. I will be a 90-year-old lady talking about, look, mommy, community in action. Well, oh my, I like the sound of that. Forever, okay? Forever. That is awesome. So, Ronnie, what is on your mind on this Thursday evening?
Well, we are closing out week 16, and I know you're going to get a chance to do some things that you have long deserved to do coming up over the next coming days. So really my thoughts are about you getting an opportunity to see some family and enjoy some friends and do whatever it is that you want to do to refresh yourself and, all those things like that. So that's what's on my mind right now.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you thinking of me in that way. I'm excited to go spend some time with my family. Not sure how the friend thing is going to go with our current, I don't know, but I'm definitely excited to spend some time with my family. Like, that's going to be great. And I have a precious baby niece, and we're going to have our literacy fest. Oh my goodness. I can't wait for us to get together and read. And I'm the auntie who does all the different types of things. I'm the auntie that's going to take you on some kind of outdoor adventure, take you places. Like, I always just scoop her up and she ends up being somewhere that she's never been before and having to overcome some kind of fear, because I'm like, we're going to try this. You're going to be okay. We are going to try this. Okay. So I'm making wonderful memories, having great experiences with her and my mom and, my aunt and other family members. I cannot wait. And they can't wait either, because they call me every day. When are you coming? When are you coming? When are you coming? So that's a wonderful feeling. When I go down there, my cup gets refilled. And I think sometimes we may not realize that our cup is a little low. But when you get around that family, for those of you who don't have your family, around you all the time, you get around that family and you recharge and that cup is full. So I cannot wait. Let's see. Let's go grab some of these comments here real quick, although you've done a great job of making sure that they popped up in a timely manner. So we have our young ones again, Shania and Peyton. Oh, these precious girls. We have Miss Joangela. Hi, how you doing? We have Glow with the fist. Hey. He said he tunes in like it's Netflix, but for books, and we appreciate that. Peyton said, "You looking handsome, Mr. Rodney."
Thank you.
Okay now.
All right.
Now. And then she said, "Beautiful, Miss Star." Oh, thank you, Pumpkin. And then Patrick is here. Patrick, again, is another literacy warrior, for real. And he said, "Controlling the narrative." That's right. And thank you too, sweet. And then she said, "It's almost the 4th of July." It is. And let's see. Oh, important. Peyton said, "Yay." I'm about to combine their names. So yes, the family is here. So I think, there are a lot of things that we could dive into to talk about, but I think perhaps we're going to just go ahead and dive into our book today, and then we'll see what subsequently happens, as a result of this. So let's see. So considerate of you.
That's right. Don't you start picking on Shania now.
Now, and I understand it though, because I remember being little and it'd be some things like that where I mean, you mean it. Like,
Yes.
I didn't say it like somebody beat me to
It's
come
like
out and think of one of them. Because
Yes.
I had some things like that. So I
It's like pushing the button at the elevator. That's right. Yes.
You didn't let me push the button. The next 30 minutes of my life are ruined because
you have to let the elevator go and come all the way back just so you can let the child push the button for the elevator.
But it's so cool that she feels that way about literacy.
Yeah.
It's so cool that that is her thing. And it's so cool to me that it's us, that is something that, you know, we help to create and that everybody is helped to just make great. So that's phenomenal. That is,
and like you said, if she's not there, we think something is wrong. So we're sitting there waiting, looking forward to that good evening.
Look, okay, like where is this good? I told you that one time when she wasn't there, I'm like, hold up, stop the press. What's going on? What is going on? Where's Shania? So you guys, we are so glad that you are here tuned in with us. We are getting ready to get into we have a question. Because see, I like interaction. Even if I like when people are asking us questions. Peyton said, how are we doing? So we're glad that you're here. We are glad that you and Shania and everybody who is tuning in, that you all are here. So we're well. You know, we see you guys. And like we've said a couple of times, the day may be busy. The day may have been long. The day may have had a lot of things happening in between. But when we get here and get this energy, when we know our babies are watching, when we know that our villagers are watching, that energy just shoots right back up. And I need this pick me up because I still got quite a bit of things to do because your sister has not finished packing yet and doing all the little last minute stuff. So I got to get into high gear with that. So that's how I feel. How are you feeling, Rodney?
I'm feeling fine. Like I said, I'm up here. Literacy Gang is here. And, another day, another opportunity. Let's do our thing.
Peyton thinks we're funny. I'm funnier. I'm the funny one.
Yes, you are. I agree.
He's funny. He's funny. So we have our book, you guys. One of our influencers, Kalia, read this. She started it off, but it was a while ago. So, and it was so cool. I did not realize that you had this book, Rodney. So when you said yesterday you had it, I mean, I'm not surprised, but I just didn't know. I
found it on a shelf. So.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In your house? You just happened to find it?
I'm not going to give you all my secrets now.
That's a cool secret that you just finding, dope books like this on your shelf. What a wonderful find. We love you too. We love you too, Peyton. Definitely.
Roll tonight.
She is, and I love it. Don't stop. And all of our children are so positive. Like their energy is just like off the charts. Yes, we are Wonder Twins unite.
Malcolm Little and Andy Griffith. You can't beat it.
So this book, I'll say this before we get started. If you guys are not familiar, one of our programs is called Read to Lead, and LEAD stands for Learn Everything About the Diaspora. And through that, it used to be called the Black History Month Youth Book Drive, but it expanded. And so we've donated thousands of Black children's books to Title I elementary schools here in Hampton Roads and Flint, Michigan. And we've done wonderful presentations, interactive presentations with our children about the importance of reading, the importance of culture and loving ourselves, and the importance of our history. And so we just have a wonderful, wonderful time. And we have all the books. It's 100 books per school when we do these, and we bring out community partners. It's just a wonderful time. And we read with the babies. We get them hyped up. It's just fun. But the books are always up on display on the tables, and they get to first walk in and look around and glance at all the books. And it's like, you can touch them because they're going into their libraries. The books will be matriculated into the library. And so this is a book. Once we started adding this one, when I discovered this, there's always at least one child this book gets grasped onto. Like, we always have to be like, sweetie, like, y'all can't take the books now because the media specialist has to put them into the system. Get the barcodes and everything on there so they can be checked out. And there's always a child who is holding on to this book like. So we have to say to the media specialist, can you please write his or her name down and make sure that the minute these books are available, that they get to check this one out. So this one seems to really, really resonate with our little ones. So we're going to kick this one off tonight. So are we going to do like Chance and Carter and do page by page?
Yeah, I think that might be easier if we versus paragraph by paragraph. So you do a page, I'll do a page, and we'll work our way through.
Excellent. Okay, so I'll kick it off. I will kick this off right here. So again, it's Malcolm Little, the boy who grew up to become Malcolm X. All right. Wait, is that the first page? Mm-hmm. That is not the first. No, I was not on my little jacket. Had the wrong page. Okay. So Malcolm X was one of the most influential. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's how Carter and Chancellor did it. Malcolm X was one of the most influential men in American history. But before he became Malcolm X, he was Malcolm Little. Malcolm was born on May 19th, 1925 in the small Midwestern town of Omaha, Nebraska. He was born into a tight-knit family with parents who not only encouraged his natural curiosity as a boy, but also taught him lessons about discipline, fortitude, and self-determination. You caught that. Malcolm's father was Earl Little, but there was nothing little about him. Papa Earl was a strong, broad, and towering man. His smooth, dark skin was as beautiful as the midnight sky. His voice resounded like gentle thunder whenever he spoke. His protection and guidance stretched up and around his family like the great live oak trees in his home state of Georgia. Malcolm's mother was Louise Norton. Louise was born in the island country of, I always say, is it Grenada or Grenada?
Grenada, either way, yeah.
Of Grenada, West Indies. It was a place known as the Spice Island, where the sweet smell of nutmeg and cocoa swirled together in the tropical air. Louise was a bright student who excelled at reading and math. She began asking questions at an early age about the mistreatment of people of color in her own town. After Louise graduated from school, she left Montreal, Canada, to join her uncle Egerton, who was a co-founder of the Marcus Garvey movement. In Montreal, Louise met the giant gentleman named Earl Little. Both of them had traveled to Montreal, focused on joining the struggle for freedom and justice.
Yeah, this is not in the book, but you remember when I was reading yesterday from the African American poetry anthology, one of the poems was about escaping to Canada. So that's very, very interesting. All right, back to the story. So Earl and Louise were soon married. The happy couple moved to the rural Midwest and soon became the parents of 7 children: Wilfred, Hilda, Filbert, Malcolm, Reginald, Yvonne, and Wesley. Earl and Louise cherished their family and instilled in their children values of faith in God and self-love, of honesty and integrity, and of brotherhood and equality. The little children were happy and romped endlessly around the little home and land in Omaha, Nebraska. Malcolm was the middle child, and well, Malcolm was different. He was full of questions, a natural leader, and a fun-loving prankster. Along with his brothers and sisters, he was always up to something.
Malcolm was different. When Malcolm was 4 years old, something horrifying happened that he would never forget. One night, while the Little family was sound asleep and the percussive hiss hum of the cricket song whistled quietly in the darkness, the loud crackle of a blazing fire awakened them. Terror clutched Malcolm's heart as he realized the blaze was consuming their home. Fortunately, Malcolm and his family escaped the raging inferno, and they watched in disbelief as their beloved home burned down to the ground. They would later learn that the flames had been set by townspeople who disagreed with their family's belief about about universal equality and justice. The fire was a sad sign of ignorance and intolerance.
But
Trauma.
I'm sorry.
Trauma.
But nothing would stop Earl and Louise Little from moving forward. Despite the great loss of their house and all their belongings, they vowed to rebuild their lives, armed not with material possessions, but instead with optimism and faith. After all, Earl and Louise knew that possessions come and go, but faith, love, and perseverance would sustain them. Earl purchased 6 acres of land in Lansing, Michigan, and set out to build a new home for his family. He would construct it with his own hands from the ground up. Earl built the house nail by nail and brick by brick, only buying a new piece of hardware when he had enough money to pay for it. "Papa," Malcolm asked, "how come we don't have windows in our house?" Earl answered with total confidence, "Son, when we can afford the glass, our frames will be filled." He leaned over to look squarely into Malcolm's eyes. All good things begin with a fundamental structure. From that moment on, whenever Malcolm felt the wind blow through those empty window frames, instead of wondering when the glass would come, he would think of his father's unstoppable optimism and faith.
Malcolm's father would preach about faith, self-reliance, and hard work to throngs of people gathered at local churches and assemblies. The grown-ups in the audience listened intently, their eyes fixed on Earl, their ears on his words, and their souls on his message. With arms raised high and eyes piercing with sincerity, Earl Little stirred the deepest parts of their beings. Malcolm felt the electricity in the room as the dignity and self-respect for those in attendance would steadily rise. The meetings were charged with the group's collective desire to create their own opportunities and to lead better lives. Malcolm's father reminded them that they were not merely the descendants of slaves, but that their African ancestors built some of the greatest civilizations ever recorded in history, and that they too could stand together to build a bright future for their children. These were lessons in hope and self-determination that Malcolm would grow to love. Malcolm sat with rapt attention as his father's uplifting messages proclaimed freedom, justice, and equality for all.
And just as Malcolm found inspiration from his father's speeches at church, he learned some unexpected lessons from his mother's garden at home. For Malcolm, the enchanted garden of Louise Norton Little was an entire world of its own, where even the most sluggish of ladybugs and the fastest scurrying of ants were all equally treated like esteemed and welcome guests at a family Sunday brunch. Here, savvy spiders busily crocheted their delicate webs along the foliage, along with the strong Midwestern sunshine, to cast pretty patterned shadows on the soft earth below. Excuse me. Geraniums dotted the field in the distance with peppy pops of pink and purple, as the crisp blue sky and lush green field connected somewhere far out in the horizon. In this sacred garden, beetles hustled about like harried businessmen on their way to important meetings, while snails lolled leisurely as if they were on some kind of half-speed permanent vacation. Here, Louise taught her children to love every little creature equally, large or small, pretty or ugly, busy or still, fast or slow, insect or plant. The garden was a testament to true and unconditional brotherhood from the earth on up to the sky, a daily lesson in acceptance and equality. Each living creature had a story, a purpose, a reason for being, and a beauty of its own. Through the majestic trees in the garden, Malcolm would also learn about the importance of roots, nature's anchors, the base of every living creature. And through the outspread wings of the chirping birds above, he began to see the power of possibility.
And so this special garden became a source of knowledge, a little family sanctuary where lessons came each day, like tiny droplets of sweet morning dew. Because Louise knew that the best way to teach a child was to give him or her a chance, she gave each of her children their very own little plot of land in the garden where they would take care of their designated areas like proud and professional mini farmers. Malcolm and his siblings learned to plant, water, trim, till, and harvest the crops, which in turn planted the seeds for hard work and their sense of self reliance. With their shovels and watering pitchers in hand, they nourished their crops and cared for their herbs, fruits, and vegetables as they would for any other living creature with intention, dedication, and love. Malcolm's favorite. Well,
You want to pick up? Okay. Malcolm's favorite vegetables to grow were peas. He would spend hours in the garden methodically combing through the rows of seedlings and sprouts, his little fingers digging ferociously into the warm earth, making sure there were no earthworms squirming around down there. When his mother later served the fresh peas at the dinner table, Malcolm would flash a great, big, gratified smile. On one summer day, as Malcolm tended to his lot in the garden, out of nowhere, a small flurry of color swept through the air. As he stood up to wipe the August sweat from his forehead, Malcolm saw the colossal insect. It was every color of the rainbow, and it flew right by his cheek, as if to give him the tiniest kiss. Malcolm had never seen anything so pretty. Its paper-thin wings moved forever winking at the world, its vibrant colors, each one more beautiful than the next. Do you see that beautiful butterfly, Malcolm? Louise asked her son as the breeze, insects, and flowers all seemed to stop in their tracks to listen to her speak. Well, believe it or not, there was a time when that butterfly thought of itself as ugly, frightened, and all alone. It did not understand the value of its own little life. It had to learn about patience because it had no idea what the future would hold. It had to develop and mature and blossom. And now look at it. It's beautiful, proud, smart, and free.
Louise always found the time to instill lessons of good morals and values, even while she was ironing, washing, cooking, and fussing over all 7 of her children. While folding fresh laundry, Louise will also unfold a newspaper from another country for her children to read. A window into the world and a way to connect with the rest of humanity, brothers and sisters all across the globe. Even though the children went to school, she knew that the best education they would receive would begin at home, and that information was one of the greatest gifts she could give to them. She could bake biscuits while discussing philosophy, sweep the floor while reciting poetry, and teach math while pruning the garden. With one hand, she would tend to the linens, and in the other hand, she would hold an open book, and Malcolm and his siblings would listen on as she enthusiastically taught them one of the alphabets of the 5 different languages that she spoke fluently. Malcolm especially loved the sound of the letters in French and hearing the elegant intonation of this sumptuous language, words that to him always sounded like they were somehow dressed up. But most of all, these lessons in language taught young Malcolm that there was a whole wide world far beyond his noisy chickens and green peas.
You see, Louise Little knew the real truth about words. She knew that they were more than just a jumble of letters all lined up in perfect rows. She showed him the magic within words. She knew that each word was actually a powerful building block, a tiny gift of meaning that could bring ideas to life. She taught young Malcolm how to appreciate the dictionary and exposed him to the world of books. In each volume, ideas and inspiration mingle like the savory flavors in a spice item stew that Malcolm couldn't wait to taste. Louise knew that words had the power to move people, to make them laugh, cry, feel, and think. But most important, she knew that the more words you learned, the better you could communicate, and the more in life you could create. She firmly believed that knowledge acquired today would transform into wisdom tomorrow.
On Sunday afternoons after school, when the air was still warm from the day and the chores were done, Malcolm loved to go fishing with his friend, Big Boy. The two of them would stand over the stream like a pair of kings surveying their empire. They stood quietly, eagerly, waiting for their fishing lines to move, for even just a hint of a ripple in the stillness of the glistening water. Sometimes they would stand there for hours, watching the stream as if nothing else mattered. They would scratch their heads and exchange looks that said, "What could we possibly be doing wrong?" Malcolm and Big Boy knew that if they wanted results, they were going to have to come up with a clever way of catching the fish. What were they not thinking of? Malcolm would scratch his head, squinting through the sunshine, and mull it over with Big Boy, both of them trying to come up with a better way to attract the fish.
Then one day on the bridge, while their lines were still, Malcolm felt a rumble in his belly. The thought of the delicious supper that was waiting for him at home crept into his mind. Freshly baked biscuits, herb roasted chicken, a medley of steamed vegetables from the garden, and a homemade apple pie with churned vanilla ice cream. Malcolm imagined the aromas that would fill the little house at dusk. And then suddenly it hit him. They needed better bait. Just like the aromas of dinner brought him and his siblings running to the table, Malcolm and Big Boy needed to lure the fish to come swimming to their lines. Their plastic earthworms obviously weren't cutting it. The next day, just before Malcolm cast his fishing rod into the stream, he pulled a handful of breadcrumbs from his pocket and hurled them into the water, where they landed like raindrops. Soon enough tiny bubbles appeared around the crumbs. And just like the little children would come rushing to the dinner table at night, the fish swam around to see what treasures Malcolm and Big Boy had to offer. From that day on, the boys caught big, beautiful fish. But more important, Malcolm learned that observation and effort could combine to create desired results.
But the innocent world of magical gardens and carefree fishing would be short-lived, and Malcolm's life would change forever. The young boy who until now had learned so much from his parents lost his father, Earl, to the brute force of racism and the narrow-mindedness of Ku Klux Klan members and their brethren in the Black Legion. They disagree with Earl and Louise's beliefs in equality, and apparently they also disagree with Earl's right to live in a free society. In fact, they did not seem to think that he had a right to live at all. And it quickly became clear that the hate and fury that was behind the fire that burned the little house down many years ago was now back again. Only this time, the hate was so strong, it took Earl Little away from his family forever.
Louise was left on her own to manage the household and the 6 acres of land and fend for her children. She sewed, crocheted, and rented out garden space on her land. The oldest 2 children, Wilfred and Hilda, set out to help their mother with raising the younger siblings and keeping the little family close and intact. It was the era of the Great Depression, and times got harder and harder. Soon, local officials began to assert that Louise was no longer fit to care for her children, and they threatened to take away the family land. The proud, loving mother on whom the children depended was now being taken from them for reasons that no one dared to explain.
When it rains, it pours, Malcolm once heard his mother say. Now he understood exactly what she meant. When Louise was taken away, the little children became wards of the state. All of the brothers and sisters were separated, Fortunately, Earl and Louise's good friends welcomed the children with open arms.
Without his parents' guidance, Malcolm became disobedient and required the structure of reform school. But due to his academic adeptness, he was eventually enrolled in Mason Junior High School. When he arrived, he was the only student of color. Malcolm felt like a fish out of water. His brothers and sisters were gone. He missed the sound of his mother's voice. He longed for the passionate speeches his father gave about the teachings of Marcus Garvey. He yearned to hear the gifted orator inspire people to care about history, justice, and equal rights for all mankind. As the only African American student in his new school, Malcolm would have to blaze his own path towards discovering the remaining truths of his own identity.
Malcolm tried to cheer himself up. He would conjure up the sweet and satisfying crunch of his mother's oatmeal cookies after a long day at school, and the frenetic clucking of the chickens the little family raised in Seoul, which always sounded like they were arguing. Now the memory of their squabbling provided music to his ears.
He thought of how funny Big Boy looked when his pants legs rolled up, sweat pouring down his cheeks like his own private rain garden. Malcolm desperately missed the lively world of laughter and love that he had grown up in. He thought of his siblings, Wilfred, Hilda, Filbert, Reginald, Yvonne, Wesley, and his newest brother, Robert, the only other people in the world who must have felt exactly as he did. Malcolm wondered if they went to bed each night, longing for the same thing that kept him awake, wanting to be together as a family again. Sad, lonely, and confused, the beautiful colors of life he once knew, flattened into an uninspiring shade of muted gray. The grief was stifling, and nothing seemed to help. Malcolm was broken.
On one overcast morning, Malcolm stood up from his desk chair and walked over to the open window, which was inviting a soft breeze into his room. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. And when he opened his eyes again, he saw something that he would never forget. Hanging delicately from a small twig on a giant evergreen tree was a cocoon, something Louise had shown him one day in the garden. You see that peculiar little thing, Malcolm? Well, it's actually a casing spun of silk, a protective covering for the creature that lives inside until it's mature enough to fly out into the world. And just then, with one tiny wing at a time, a magnificent butterfly came half fluttering, half stumbling out. It was in flight for the very first time, set free from its home, alone, and finally face to face with the entire universe. When Malcolm saw the butterfly, that familiar symbol of freedom and transformation, he remembered who he was and where he came from. He remembered his own cocoon, the safe haven where lessons and values came like nourishment each day. With his eyes fixed, he followed the path of the butterfly flying away. At first, it seemed uncertain, perhaps confused by his new life outside of the safe little shell. But in time, it began to take flight, soaring through the world around it, bringing joy and color everywhere.
The soaring butterfly gently opened Malcolm's heart to feel joy again. Standing there on his own 2 feet, he felt his roots reaching down into the earth, gripping the soil and providing the strength he needed to awaken the dormant parts of his identity. He would use the sharpness of his mind to overcome the heaviness of his heart. He would replace sadness with smarts and hardship with hard work at school. And just like the butterfly, Malcolm was ready to soar. But his resolve would soon be tested. One morning, the English teacher, Mr. Ostrowski, asked him what he wanted to be when he grew up. Malcolm, who was sitting straight up in his chair, proudly announced that he wanted to be a lawyer. His grades were certainly high enough to set him on this path, but his teacher did not believe that African Americans should have high expectations for themselves or aspire to excel. He did not believe that people like Malcolm should dream, hope, plan, or succeed. But Malcolm was now old enough to understand that Mr. Ostrowski was terribly wrong. And just as nothing had ever stopped Earl, Malcolm learned how to rise up with that same bold determination that made his father a family hero. He had good ideas and good friends at school and the can-do attitude to make something of that promising combination. Whenever Malcolm would tell a story or a joke, the kids would all gather around, their eyes fixed on the charismatic boy, who was clearly different from them, but someone whom they adored and respected just the same. The little boy who had lost so much was now ready to face the world.
And then one day, something extraordinary happened. Malcolm Little, the boy who was raised on the vision of freedom and justice, was elected class president by the students in his 7th grade class. When they looked at Malcolm, they no longer saw a mournful child lost in the world. Now they saw a smart, insightful, charming winner. They voted for a leader who believed in equality and who radiated optimism. Their open-mindedness symbolized hope for generations to come.
Malcolm may have lost his family, but he never lost the values for which the little family stood. And for the rest of his life, whenever doubt, sadness, fear, or pain would come creeping into his thoughts, he would firmly hold on to one constant force that always gave true meaning to his family life: love.
Literacy, culture, community, love.
Oh, man. The end.
What a story.
Yeah.
So you go first because I have some things.
Well, why don't we do this? There is the author's notes. You want to read those?
Sure.
I mean, since I'm there, I can kick us off. So this is the author's note. This book was written by one of the daughters of Malcolm X. So she writes as follows. I wrote this book for 2 reasons: to encourage young readers to access the transformational power within, as exemplified by the early childhood of my father, and to pay homage to my grandparents, Earl and Louise Little. It was Malcolm's parents who provided the unconditional love and nurturance that would anchor his lifelong process of learning, forever aspiring to be better and to always give back to society along the way. As a daughter of Malcolm X, I have been privy to myriad stories of his youth, as told to me by members of my paternal family and by those who were closest to him. And since my mother, Dr. Betty Shabazz, devised ingenious ways to keep my father alive and present for the Shabazz family, lessons and values that shaped Malcolm X as a man, a father, and a leader were inevitably impressed upon me from as young as I can remember. You know, this is kind of long, so maybe we can come back to that because now that I see it, it's quite a bit. You want to keep going, or you want to?
It's a bit. Let's grab some of our.
Okay, let's grab some comments. Then we can come back.
Yeah. So let's see. We got here. We'll start with Portia right here, and she says, "I love the matching Malcolm Little books. Yeah, it's pretty cool." Peyton says, "Yay, I love learning." And Peyton says, "Go Black History." Okay. And Peyton says, "Oh, cool, interesting." And then we have Danya. We have Danyada up here. How you doing, sis? So good to have you joining us. She says, "Hey, brother Rodney, and my awesome mentee Star. Hey there." Miss Tiffany says, "Happy Thursday." And this was in response to probably the part about Malcolm's father. Yeah. Danya says, "Oh no." And Peyton says, "Wow." And Glow says, "Nice 1-2 punch with the reading." Yeah, I enjoyed that. We gotta get some more books, the same book, Rodney. Danya says she loves the graphics. They are great. And she says, trying to destroy big dreams of African-American kids is too common. That's why we need African-American schools and HBCUs to stay in our neighborhoods. So I could do a whole, let me not even say hour, a lifetime on that. So to get through the other comments, I feel like we're going to come back to that, because even that part on that page right there, I'm a pretty cool person. But when you do that, that's when the coolness goes away. That's what we're not going to stand for. Okay. That's when the fierceness comes out. We're not doing that to our children's dreams. Okay. And then the hearts. Yes. And Greer says she's telling somebody, she's tagging somebody to come check us out. And Portia says, brilliant story, family. Thank you. So I know some things, co-host. I know how we do. I know how you do. I know your brain the whole time this thing has been, we've been reading this. You probably, well, we weren't able to take notes because we were showing the pictures, but I'm sure you have mental notes. So.
Absolutely.
What's
Absolutely.
on?
I mean, so from everything with Malcolm being inspired by the words of his father, the family being Garveyites, the father building things off the land. You know, we heard how the family was attacked. They moved to Lansing. They brought land, 6 acres. The father built that new home with his own 2 hands, and his children watched him build that. So, I mean, there's so much we could just talk about with that in and of itself. But then later, even after the family has been broken up, and those of us that have read the autobiography know just the cruelty that Malcolm's mother faced as the children were being broken apart. But I also found what was very interesting to me in this particular book is how little Malcolm, even in the environment that he was in, that many of our children find themselves in, that many of our influencers described that they experienced, they still excelled. They knew who they were, or they came to appreciate who they were. And even as adults, be they black, white, or children or others, tried to depress their dreams and their aspirations, it was too late. It couldn't be snuffed out because of that strong foundation that he got from his family and got along the way. And I think that's something we have to remind ourselves of. And Miss Donyetta Washington, who every day I get to see on Facebook, instill that in her own daughter and be able to watch that growth, and known her from way back when she was doing things with feeding, you know, long before everybody got decided they're going to go around and feeding folks was all popular. Donyetta was out there a long time ago.
Virginia kids.
That's right. Doing that work, looking out for children, making sure that the neighborhood was taken care of. And so you see, so when I read stories like Malcolm Little, I think of Donyetta's little queen herself, that she's been raising up, and a whole lot of other mothers and fathers are raising up in our community. And we need to provide the same type of growth, the same type of support, the same type of love for our children today as is embodied in this Malcolm Little story. So that's one of the first things that strikes me.
I think, you know, you hit one of the first things that I was thinking about, how strong the foundation is. There's you always have the Bible verses better than I, but what is it? Train a child
in the way, yeah, in the way they should go, and when they get older, they shall not depart from it.
So I think that there's a lot of truth to that, and I don't know that you don't depart, but I think that a lot of times, even India Arie had a song called "Come Back to the Middle," and so I think that even if you do depart, what your foundation is like, a lot of times it's hard for you to not be true to who you are. So even if life pulls you in different directions, a lot of times you end up coming back to that base. So it's so important as parents particularly, or whomever, if it's whomever is that influence, if it's mom, dad, grandma, aunt, uncle, whomever those people are who are raising the child, to be intentional about that foundation, and then for the community to do the same thing. And so that was just something that really struck me, because he went through a lot. And another thing, just when it comes to our children, it talked about, and this is not something that is uncommon, how he became to be disruptive, because his whole life was torn apart. You had this wonderful, stable, loving life, this routine as a child that you were used to, and then here comes an evil force that murders your father, and your stability, your mother is changed, the anchor is gone, and everything that you know is just ripped out from under you like that. And so the child began to act out. And a lot of our children who are acting out, there's a lack of stability there. There's that love deficiency that I talk about a lot of times. And it is our job to show them grace. It is our job to diagnose, to have an understanding, even when it's not always easy, but to find out why. What is going on here? What is the root cause? And you got to show, because a lot of times the world is cruel. There are statistics that back this up. And a lot of us have seen it ourselves, where people will see Black children and they expect the worst. They have the lowest expectations. And instead, it needs to be your job. It needs to be my job and everybody's job to see the best into them and to find out what the root cause, because you easily could have just dismissed that as him being disruptive. But we got to invest in our children. They're our best investment. So, and so we know who this child grew up to be. Like, we saw that even within later grades while he was still a child. But we know the man who he grew up to be. So we have to understand that even if they don't grow up to be Malcolm, like a Malcolm X, if they grow up to work at the post office, if it's still there, that's dignified work and they matter. And so we have to pour into our children with intentionality like that. Like, you got to understand that you got to love on these Black children real hard. It is your job. It is my job. It is our duty. It is our responsibility. I mean, to the point where it might feel a little odd to you if you're not used to doing it. But I say guerrilla love tactics. They talk about guerrilla war tactics. Practice guerrilla love tactics. Like, so that's one thing that I thought about with just seeing how.
Can I just pick up off something as you were saying that's in my mind as I'm just gonna wear my school board hat just for a little bit, because too often I think we are too quick to pick up the pad and send Malcolm Little to the office, or pick up the phone and call the SRO to come talk to Malcolm Little, and dismiss little Malcolm Little. Okay, and let's not even get started today about Black girls and how they get pushed out and how they get treated, because in all of our wonderful language that we talk about, we got to save the black male, which is true, but far too often we ignore the needs of our Black daughters as well. So since you raised that, I'm sitting here thinking, maybe this is a book we need to make sure that all our teachers read at all grade levels, and all of our parents and all of our coaches and all these other folks that we have out in the community that are so quick to try to send our children, just like Malcolm, to some type of reform school that may or may not really reform anything, but strengthen them to be more disobedient. So I'm gonna take my hat back off, but you touched on something and it just struck me, and I just wanted to say that.
Look, let me know how we make this happen, okay? Because I'm here for it. Miss Tiffany said a must read. I mean, it's so true, and so it's our job. It's everybody's job. But I'm saying, look, we know within this community that what Rodney just said, what I was saying, that it happens so much. Let's first make sure that we're not doing it. Because I know when you're in education, when you're in youth programming, and you have a lot of children, and you have your own children, and you have your own life, and you have a lot of things going on, but we know why we're doing this. And so we have to go that extra mile. We have to go this extra mile, because these children, again, even if they don't aspire to be the next Malcolm X, if that's not what they become, let me tell you, the children are our biggest investment, because when you raise healthy people, we've all heard the saying, hurt people hurt people. But when you raise whole, healthy children, just the ripple effect for our society becomes better, for our community, and he had a strong foundation that was like that. And this man, one of the things that I admire about him was that he seemed to be what he grew into. When you talk about transformation, which was brought up in this story a couple of times, that was one heck of a couple of transformations that he went through throughout his life. And the ultimate one, he was one of the most disciplined humans ever, like so disciplined. And I just that's one of the things that I find to be remarkable about Malcolm. But when we go back to this life of little Malcolm, it seemed to be that it was just such a wonderful life that he had. And the parents were intentional. The parents put a lot of thought into things. And the community, they even said that after his mom, when they were separated from the mother, that the family friends, between the friends of the family, they took in the 7 children.
Yeah, but we know that happens in our communities every single day.
Informally.
And as Miss Donetta said, we need to recommit our village, and we need a ceremony. I think maybe we do need a ceremony to pay homage to those parents and grandparents and aunts and neighbors and sometimes strangers who see children in need and take them in and provide them with recognition and support, because it happens every day, and we may not all appreciate it to the way that we should, but I think all of us have stories we could tell of young people that we probably didn't know, weren't related to, but saw that they had some special need, and we took them in, or they took us in along the way to provide that support. And so when we talk about the virtual village, when we talk about the Let's Get Clever village, the Communities in Action village, in some ways we're kind of doing that right now, virtually, bringing some support. I go back to the picture that Sharice Newsom sent to us the other day of her son there, with his phone watching this program.
And what Shania's grandmother said.
Yeah. So you just never know. And I didn't bring my tissue box now, but I didn't know this was going to lead to all this. But we may not have to read this story again a few times as we make this transition through the summer, or other books like it, where we truly take the opportunity to speak to the greatness in our children and the greatness in our family and community when we support our children.
Yes. And we've seen a lot of wonderful, and I know that the changes during the quarantine time were a lot on everyone. But my goodness, we saw some phenomenal parenting, like some creativity, some villagers stepping in, like some wonderful things happening. So all of that came to surface where I think we didn't see it a lot, before. Like it was there, but it started being put on social media, on Zoom calls and different things like that. So yeah, definitely. And to your point, a lot of people say that Black people don't adopt enough. And I'm always like, maybe not formally.
Exactly.
Formally, but who does it more?
Exactly.
Like, be careful what you let a statistic tell you. Like, you got your own eyes and what you see and what you know, and then you're listening to a statistic that somebody is giving you. I'm like, I can't rock with that one. I can't do it. But maybe not a formal adoption, but goodness, how many people, like you said, raised by grandma, raised by this aunt and this uncle, this, and then just the people who have the strong bearing in our lives, the strong influences in our lives. Like, it's so communal, like, come on. So yeah. So I think definitely this was an excellent read. Again, if you guys are interested, because we are encouraging summer reading. Okay, we are building up our libraries at home. All right, and we are reading and discussing, comprehending, having great conversations around the books that we read. So this is Malcolm Little, the boy who grew up to become Malcolm X. So add that, add that one to your summer reading list. Okay, it's a great one, and obviously great subsequent conversations can come as a result of it. I do want to thank everybody for tuning in. I'll grab these comments real quickly, and we're kind of going over our time a little bit. Then we'll run on out of here. Tiffany says, amazing, train up a child. And Diana said, thank you for the shout out.
That's right. Virginia Kids Eat Free. As far as I'm concerned, she was the first, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. In our community, let's recognize the greatness in our community. And now, you know, like recognize it right now. Okay. Not like 30, 40 years later.
Mhm.
Portia says Diana is definitely a blueprint for the process of motherhood. I didn't know y'all knew each other. So
Yeah, of course. Come on now.
makes sense.
Yes.
It is so important for the community to be intentional about helping to strengthen our children so they will come back like you're saying, Star. Yes, yes. And then there's that other saying about the child who doesn't feel the warmth from the village will burn it down to feel that warmth. So we don't want that. Yes, we are to see the best in our children because we never know the darkness inside or the power that is within. You are so right about it, Sar. And then gorilla love. Yes, y'all, let's practice that gorilla love. And that, listen, the gorilla love is even for children who you see in passing. Okay. So that even means when you see children skipping down the street, doing whatever they do down the street, or reciting some, rap lyric down the street, you still practicing that gorilla love. So it's, hey, beautiful, how are y'all doing this evening? Hey, powerful, phenomenal children, how are y'all doing? So glad to see y'all. Good morning. I don't care if they look at you like, what? Keep doing it until they expect it from you. Till they're like, here she is again. Like, I guess I'm beautiful and powerful because this lady keeps saying it. Tiffany says, a must read. Danyada said, all teachers of all ethnicities need to read the book, like you said, Rodney. Affirmative.
Absolutely.
Affirmative. Amazing. Thank you, sis. Thank you so much. And Tiffany says she's feeling this. And then the comment that you mentioned, let's put a pin in that, is something that yeah. And then she says she sees it every day, Tiffany. The
support.
Right. Yeah. It's problematic. Okay. And we need all hands on deck. You're making an impact when you don't realize it. You both are fulfilling a great need. This video will be viewed many times over and will be a blessing. Thank you. And your comments and all of your, we're just all working together, right? This is how it should be, a big old community. Y'all better preach. And that is the good talk. We foster our communities through our hearts of taking care of our village in a clever way. I see what you did there. And let's see. Timmy said, you guys are definitely motivating me. Yes, we appreciate you for motivating our little ones because she gets them that foundation again. Right. That foundation, she's getting them at that foundational time. So we appreciate you, sis. We're feeding each other, right? We feed it, we pump, we fill each other up. So
can I ask one favor? Just something that happened to me earlier today, and I'm just gonna mention it since Miss Tiffany just made that comment. So I had a grandparent call me today who was looking for early learning literacy summer programs for her grandson. So Miss Tiffany or anybody else that's out there who has literacy programs, summer camps, anything that they may be doing with the young children, especially 4, 5, 6-year-olds, if you all could share that in the comments section, I think it would be good. We can share that with parents and also share it with the village. So if anybody out there right now who's doing any type of additional literacy, teaching children to read, 4, 5, 6-year-olds, if you would share that, we need to make sure that we let our village know how they can reach out and get that services for their children and their grandchildren.
Yes, please drop that information because I think it's been harder to find because of our current.
Yes, absolutely.
Right now, because I didn't even do the one that I do because
yeah.
So,
but Miss Starr, I think this turned out to be a a great way to send you off down to your niece and let you spend a few weeks doing some other things. We know you're still going to be popping in, and next week we'll be up on Thursdays, and the influencers will be here on Wednesdays. But we definitely are still encouraging folks to come and sign up and come be like Shania and read in character. Come be like Peyton and read in character. So, I'm glad we saved this duet that we did for today, and Shania took over yesterday.
Yes, it worked out perfectly. Yesterday was wonderful, and then what a great one today. And thanks for the reminder, the housekeeping that you guys, we are during the month of July, we are going to Thursday programming. So Thursdays at 7 p.m. we will broadcast older shows because it's been 4 months. So we have a lot of shows. So we'll be broadcasting those throughout the week. So you guys can go back and catch up on some things that you missed, some of the fun times. See us in the very beginning when we started this and we didn't know exactly where everything was going. You can see the many different hairstyles that I have had since this started. Like, wait. So just a lot of wonderful people who have come through here and blessed us with the stories that they read, some of them the stories that they wrote, the phenomenal children who have come here. So you don't want to miss those. Those are going to be good to check out. And then we'll pop up sometimes. You might think it's going to be a run night, and it might be, both of us or one of us up here. The influencers, as Rodney said, come back next Wednesday. And you guys, the Survey Monkey, I decided to put it out next week because everybody is getting ready for an extended weekend. And I think people may be focused on doing things with family and whatnot. So did I freeze up?
I think I did.
Okay, you did, but it's usually I'm the Teddy Riley, so I was like, it's probably me, not him, but okay. But so I'm gonna put that survey out on Monday, and so or maybe over the weekend, I don't know. But the survey, basically, we need you guys. It'll only take about a minute. But please, if you've ever come up here and read, if you've ever tuned in, if you just viewed, please fill out that survey when we drop it. If you participated in the reading, you'll get an email from us. Please take the time to fill that out. It helps us with our programming, and it helps us with our evaluations, and it helps us to decide how to move forward with this program, okay? Because if y'all be like, this was cool, but we good, then, we need to know that. If y'all are like, more, all of those things, let us know, okay? So thank you so much. It's always a treat with the Virtual Village family. You all are wonderful. It's great connected with like-minded people, with people who understand the importance of literacy, culture, community, and love. All right. So just thank you all for blessing us with your wonderful, wonderful presence. And we're going to be out. All right, y'all. Peace.
Look, mommy, community in action. But oh my, let us down to that. Look, daddy, there's a book for me too. But oh my, let us down to that. Creative, affirming, and culture for me too. Look, granny, let us down to that. Look, granny, let us down to that. Look, granny, let us down to that. Learning, exploring my history, you see. Look, mommy, let us down to that. We confident, we practice and develop fluency. Look, daddy, let us down to that. Families, they bond and they representing me. Look, granny, let us down to that. Look, I'm here, let us down to that. Nice, I see, let us down to that.
So reliable, culturally relevant. Sit back and listen to the wisdom while we represent. So reliable, culturally relevant. Readers to leaders, they hold it down where they have to sit. So reliable, culturally relevant. Sit back and listen to the wisdom while you represent. So reliable, culturally relevant. Readers to leaders, they hold it down, yeah, they have to sit.
Look, mommy, community in action. Well, oh my, let us down to that. Look, daddy, there's a book for me too. Well, oh